Assalamu alaikum everybody. Welcome back to today's module, which is reading, module 2, part 2, and today we will be annotating texts. So let's start off with this phrase where it says annotating. Well, this is the definition of what annotating is. So annotating is when you add notes or comments to a text. This could include underlining or circling individual words or phrases. So annotating is a very useful way to keep a track of what you notice whilst you're reading. The notes and marks you make can focus on particular details in the text. For example, if you were focusing on a setting, you could circle all the words and phrases used to describe the place. And there are many ways to annotate texts, so try out different approaches to see what works best for you. Examples of common techniques include circling or underlining words or phrases that are interesting or important and writing notes in the margin. Also using different colored highlighters to pick out different ideas, techniques, or details, and using one margin to make note of literacy devices and the other margin to add your own responses. Okay. So tips for annotating quickly in exams. So use abbreviations for longer words, example, ALIT for alliteration. So when annotating text and reading through a passage or an article, and when you will need to analyze what the article is about with a different pen or different color pen, abbreviations mean, for example, if you see an alliteration is basically when you see the two same words begin with the same letter. For example, let me make one from the top of my head. So bouncy ball, so it's a BB, so you would underline it as it says bouncy ball, two words starting with the same letter. And then for alliteration, you could just, instead of writing the whole alliteration word out, you could just write alit. So I'm sure you're all aware of what abbreviations are. So don't worry about making it look pretty. Make your marks and notes more functional. So use marks that you can understand, for example, arrows or question marks to focus your attention on certain details. So don't worry about annotating everywhere. It needs to be selective. So it depends on what your question is, what you're looking for, what your main purpose is. And in regards to that, in terms to that, that's the way you're supposed to be annotating. Don't annotate every single sentence, just annotate what's good to go with you and what you should be looking for. There's no point annotating every little sentence. Just be very selective and very specific with your analyzing and annotating, okay? So what to look at when annotating? So annotating structure we're going to talk about right now. So read the text and look for patterns in the structure. For example, sentence length and type. Example, single or multi-clause sentences. Paragraph length and structure. Example, focus on how the paragraph opens and closes. Also, any repeated words and phrases, and the order of ideas in the extract. For example, where does a narrative start? It is a focus shift. Okay. So analyzing language and literacy techniques. Highlight any interesting language features in the text. For example, pick out examples of literacy devices that stand out because they're unusual or because they link closely to the character, theme, or setting. Highlight individual words to explore closely, those with particular connotations or ones that seem to relate to the theme of text. Also, annotating characterization and voice we're going to talk about now. So pick out the key elements which show the development of characters. So look for phrases that reveal key details about characters. So for example, you might want to highlight an example of where a character's appearance is linked to a theme. So highlight points where narrative perspective is shown through the language. And is the author using the perspective for a particular effect? So pick out the examples that support your ideas. Okay, it's all about what your purpose is and what your ideas is in order whenever annotating a text. So annotating for themes and ideas. The main key point is to highlight any words or phrases that link to the main themes or a particular semantic field. So it might sound repetitive, the fact that I'm always repeating annotate in terms of what's your purpose and what you need to find out, what's reading the article, and what kind of information that you need that may link to your question or your research. So over here it says highlight any words or phrases that link to the main theme or particular semantic field. So for example, when reading a text or an article, any kind of text, and you see repetitive words or sentences or ideas that come up often, you should talk about why it's repeating itself, question the repetitiveness, and question the actual field that it always talks about and what it concludes. Okay, so link the main themes of the article to your purpose of annotating the text. So for example, here's an example of some selective annotations. The student is focused on the language choices in this extract, okay? So as you can see, the student has highlighted that that's a metaphor in a halo, and he's also highlighted these SS sibilants, S words, and personification, that's dark, and some nouns, our, us, we, and also some colons. So left on top of the page, open fruits grow hard, pastels grown soft. So all these, so a metaphor, Nana's fine, her hair floated in a halo around her head, positive. Sibilants, the repeated use of letters adds softness here. Also personification, that they're dark fingers and sinister, but then contrast to the adverb gently. So personal pronouns, the use of our, us, and we, sense of family. So that's personal because of the fact that they use ours, us, and we. And tricolon of 3 single colos sentences creates rhyme and interest for the reader. So I would suggest as an activity also, in terms of that, I would suggest you guys learn what a metaphor, sibilants, personification, personal pronouns is. We will go into more detail later on, but after you know what these specific definitions mean, then you would find it easier to annotate. And some of you may already know what a metaphor or a sibilance or personification is. You could give feedback and see if you know all these definitions already. Some of you may not, but that's totally okay. So now it's your turn. Your task is to write down and learn the 3 key ways in regards to how to annotate. So learn the key tips for how to annotate in exams and learn the structures and techniques, okay? So the structure and techniques include this. These are the techniques, and obviously techniques again. And all of these are techniques, and the structure. Learn the structure of how to annotate, basically, and the key tips and the 3 ways that you're supposed to annotate with. So this is a very simple and basic lecture again on how to annotate your reading passages. I hope you understood this lecture very well, and hopefully see you tomorrow then, inshallah. Okay, then take care.